Hello there.
I have some quick thoughts on this new Amadeus series coming up by Sky. So, just to help out, I'm going to be using this article here. Sky's forthcoming historical drama series, based on Peter Shaffer's celebrated play, has encountered a significant online resistance following Tuesday's premiere of its promotional footage. The 5-episode production, Amadeus, scheduled for December broadcast on Sky and Now, represents a fresh television interpretation of the material that previously inspired Milos Forman's Academy Award-winning 1984 film. Social media platforms erupted with negative reactions immediately after the trailer's release, as viewers expressed dismay at the decision to revisit the well-regarded cinematic adaptation. Okay, so I think that this reaction is actually quite well founded. Amadeus is a phenomenal piece of writing. For me, it's one of the best plays, one of my favorite plays, one of the best plays I've ever read, and I think Peter Shaffer does an incredible job at capturing this complicated relationship between Mozart and Salieri. There's these interesting themes about artistry and comparison, about the difficulty of acknowledging your own failings as an artist, the themes of pride and kind of pride before the fall. There's issues about disillusionment with God and jealousy, and really I just think there's so much substance to the play, and it's written and presented so well by Shaffer, and it's so complicated and nuanced and really gripping. And I think that it's kind of wild, but Milos Forman, with his movie, he managed to elevate that. And obviously Shaffer worked with the screenplay in that regard, so they managed to develop certain ideas a little bit further. There were different scenes, there were kind of interesting new points that they could include in the plot that really worked to kind of define those themes that the play was already grappling with. And ultimately the product was a movie that was absolutely exceptional, with great performances. Particularly I think of obviously the two main performances by Tom Hulce and by F. Abraham Murray, I think. I can't quite remember what his name was, but phenomenal acting jobs from both of them. And now we have like a perfect movie that is widely regarded as a phenomenal movie. And 20 years later, they're trying to kind of do a redo, or whatever, 40 years later, they're trying to remake it. And I think it makes sense that there is a little bit of pushback against this, because what's the point? If you've watched that movie and you understand how well they captured those ideas and that theme and that interplay between the two characters and the complexity, what's the point of trying to redo it? Anyway, let's look at some of the actual reactions. So critics question the rationale behind creating another version of the story, with one user asking why anyone would attempt to improve upon what they described as one of the most perfect movies ever made. The production has drawn particular criticism for its casting choices, with viewers taking issue with Will Sharp's selection to portray the Austrian composer. So this is this is where it gets complicated. I'm not really against. I'm not against them finding the best actor for the role, and if the best actor for the role happens to be this guy, Will Sharp, I think then it's reasonable for them to try to do this. But I also think they have to understand that by casting someone who is Asian or from Asian descent, or who isn't clearly from Austrian descent, such as the character, Tom Hulce was American and he spoke with an American accent, but he did look Austrian. He had that classic European look, and that helped to kind of capture the sense that you were in Austria at this time. The problem when you have someone who is from a different racial background is that it takes you out of the context of the movie. It kind of feels a little bit more like Amadeus by way of Bridgerton. It makes you feel like you're in a very modern interpretation of the space, and that is distracting, and that does take away from the effectiveness of the film, because you don't feel like you're watching something that took place. You don't feel like you're suddenly transported to this real time, real location, and real characters and real conflicts. You kind of feel like you very much feel like you're watching a product of the modern day, and that's a problem. Social media users highlighted that the actor who has Japanese heritage, represents a departure from historical accuracy, with one commenting, "I had no idea Mozart was East Asian." Further sarcastic responses emerged online, including one user who wrote, "Is this the one where we find out that the true genius behind Amadeus is a paraplegic, non-binary black woman that taught him everything and wrote his music?" People are very cynical, and that's one of my frustrations with these kind of like internet comments, because I understand where they're coming from, but also by commenting in this way with these very short, cynical, and often quite, I don't know, almost problematic comments. Like, you can see that there are issues that they're trying to point at, but they don't convey them well, and they convey them in a way that just invites more controversy. And so that people can look at these comments and say, look at these hateful individuals online, look at the problems we have in society, look at this racism, look at whatever. And actually, it's kind of hard to argue, that everything is fine and that these points are perfectly valid when the comments themselves seem very demeaning and seem like a personal attack against the person, against the actor, and against his race. When actually, I think that they should be more nuanced, because there's a bigger problem here. It's not the race, his race like itself isn't an issue, and it's not this simple thing of like, oh, this is where we find out that, they're saying Mozart was East Asian. The issue isn't just like, it's not the race itself that's the problem. The issue is that it is what the impact that has on the story. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the fact that this actor has Japanese heritage, but that is going to have consequences on the story you're trying to tell. And I think that for people, like, they can see that and they can discern that, and it's hard for them to communicate that in a way that doesn't come across as very problematic. But I don't think that means that the issue itself necessarily has to be entirely political. Further sarcastic responses emerged online. Okay, I've done that. Another fumed, "What's original about this? Looks like the actors sat around for months watching the original in order to copy their characters. No thanks." Yeah, again, there doesn't seem to be any point really in this story, because it's already been done, and it's been done phenomenally well. And maybe the argument there is, okay, do we try reproduce these existing stories, or do we just try and find new material that's been written? New stories that have been written, and we try and develop new movies, like Milos did. You find these interesting novels and you make new things. You don't just remake movies from the past, even if you think you can add an interesting twist on it. The casting controversy dominated much of the online discourse, with numerous viewers expressing frustration that the production had chosen to deviate from traditional portrayals of the 18th century musical genius. It's not even this. They also had Paul Bettany playing Salieri. Paul Bettany does not look like an Italian. Maybe that's me being, I don't know, problematic. But F. Murray Abraham, he had the look of an Italian composer. I don't know how he had it, but he had it. So, and these are the things that when you have characters who can capture the look of that person and that time period, that really helps to draw the viewers in. And that's what creates the effectiveness of the film, along with the script, along with the scenes and the music and all these other things. Viewers also mocked Sky's promotional messaging, particularly the broadcaster's claim to believe in original stories. Yeah, that was a terrible idea from Sky. The fact that they included that line in the trailer when it was them clearly not making an original story. One social media user pointed out the contradiction. Lol, they really ended that trailer with "believe in original stories"? Really? After making perhaps the one movie that never ever needs to be remade. Yeah. The backlash extended to broader frustrations about the entertainment industry's reliance on existing material. Yeah, this is a problem. They keep doing this. They keep trying to remake things rather than trying to focus on finding new materials, new stories to create, with viewers calling for genuinely new content instead of revisiting familiar narratives. This is quite funny. Joe Barton, who adapted the play for television, addressed the criticism with a sardonic response on social media. "I wrote this. As part of our promotion, we are going to destroy every single copy of the 1984 original movie in existence, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it." That is a good. That's a good comment from him. I appreciate that. Find the humor in it. That's a great move. Okay, here is Paul playing Salieri, and again, I don't. He just looks like an Englishman. He just looks like, I don't know, maybe because I know the actor, so I can just see the actor rather than I can't really see Salieri in it. But to me, again, you need to find actors if you really want to draw in viewers into the space. You need to find actors who represent that time and place in history. The series features Paul Bettany as Antonio Salieri, the court composer consumed by jealousy over Mozart's talents. Oh, man, what a fantastic story. Anyway, alongside Gabriele Creevy as Constance Weber and Rory Kinnear as Emperor Joseph. The production promises to chronicle Mozart's rise and fall in 18th century Vienna, exploring his rivalry with Salieri across 3 decades. It really is an incredible play. It's a beautiful story. It's amazingly well written, and it was really so beautifully captured in that 1984 movie. And so I understand why people are concerned about the idea of you trying to create this new property, this new representation of it, because it doesn't need to be redone. And I think your efforts would be much better spent trying to make something else. And the problem is that now you are creating this property that automatically is going to draw so much frustration and so much anger, and these bitter comments that are almost racist, and that are complaining about race and not really touching on the actual complexity of the issue, which is that by trying to do this, by trying to have actors of different races doing things, you really do make the story something different, and you're making it very much like a Bridgerton thing, where it's a modern product as opposed to being, this accurate reflection of the past, and that's going to have consequences. And I really think, as much as I don't like these comments, I understand where they're coming from, and I think my hope would be that people can learn to use their comments more effectively in actually trying to express the problem, rather than just contributing to this ongoing tension around these issues.